Now we will take a closer look at formatting text. That is obviously a very crucial technique because while you're dealing with InDesign, there is text all the time. So it's not only enough to understand how formatting works, but also it's good to learn as much as possible. This can save you a lot of time in the long run, and especially for formatting text. I have created this page on this workbook, page number 42, and you'll see all the shortcuts. I recommend to learn and keep using these shortcuts, and I will mention the most of them. Here's the list. You can always look at here and apply these shortcuts depending on what your operating system is. It's a command for Apple and control for Windows. So I have this frame here on the right, some copy inside it, and we will be exploring mainly here all the techniques that we need to learn. So first of all, whenever you are in the text frame, you will see that where you can start tapping when the cursor is, and if I start tapping, you can see it shows up. Now if I quickly move around within the frame, I can use the arrow keys, double click. If I double click here, you see the cursor is blinking right like so. Now if I use the arrow keys, I can move around within the copy, similarly to the other text editors. But there's already a useful shortcut to learn, that is Control key or Command key and then arrow keys, with which you can jump between paragraphs. Like here I'll hold Control, and there I can jump between paragraphs, and you can see I can go up and down very quickly, and that is already quite useful if you use Control left or right keys, when I can jump between the words in your text. That's also quite useful. Now you can combine these shortcuts with the Shift key, and you can hold down Control Shift together, and you can jump between the words, and you can select them all together. So instead of click and drag to make selection over text, you can simply just use these shortcuts. And of course, if you don't want to select the whole word, you can just use Shift right arrow key to select an individual character as well, like this. It will select an individual character. Another useful thing to know is that when you double click on a word, it immediately gets selected. Like here, double click on the word, triple click will give me a whole line, and the quadruple click will give me a whole paragraph. So even without the keyboard, you can have these shortcuts of faster ways of selecting text. And if you were to click 5 times, it will select the whole copy or the whole story. But instead of that, I would recommend to use Control A shortcut. So this will select the whole story in case of multiple threads. I will select all the copy from all the threaded frames. If you want to deselect the text, the easiest thing to do is to press Escape, and then the frame will be selected, but the copy itself won't be selected anymore. Now let's just come back to here, double click on the frame here, and I don't even need to switch to the type tool, and you can see it has already selected the type tool here. So if I have the selection tool and I double click, it will automatically enter the editing mode, and I will have the type tool selected. And notice that once I'm in type editing or text editing mode, we immediately get all these options in the options bar, and that is a massive area. So they had to divide both of these into 2 parts. So we have character formatting and then paragraph formatting controls, because InDesign has so many things that you can do with the text. They cannot fit everything in just one bar. So they have another drop down here on the right side, where you have even more options to format your text. And there is a lot to learn that we will take this step by step just by simply changing the font on selected text. So I'm going to select this paragraph, so I'll give 4 times click and then go back to character formatting controls. Because this is the first option that we have is to change the font here, and this is a drop down so I can find all the fonts installed in my computer, and I'll be able to scroll down and find what I'm looking for, or if I know the name of the font I could just go simply here and type here. So if I know what I'm looking for, let's just say Jill Sans. Let's type in Jill, Gill, Jill Sans empty bold. So I can just type in like so and get my desired fonts in just one click. Now my text is updated here. So if this is the font, and I would often make them a market favorite, here I have a favorites option. I can also mark the favorites from here as well. Now if you notice, if we come back to this font list, all the previously used fonts will appear here on the top. But if I want to mark it as favorite, make sure that I can easily access it or find it in my other documents as well, or in this one in the future, I have to just simply click on the star on the right, click here, and you will only see this in the Creative Cloud version. And there is a couple of additional things in the font selector that you won't have access to if you have the older versions. So once I mark the font as favorite, next time if I want to look for it, I can just set this filter to favorites, and there I have my favorite font right here. And click and go back to the regular here, and that way it is much faster to find the font list of fonts that I'm looking for. And there is another way of filtering option here. Are some different options, classifications of text with respect to sans serif, serifs, slab serif, script, black letter, monospace, handwritten, or decorative washes. So these are the types of fonts that we have within the document. Also, you can download the fonts from the internet. Now, if you want to download the font, let's say I'll just go to the internet. Here, I want to download the House Sloan regular font. Say House Sloan regular font. And here I have a few websites that will show up with this font. You can just select any of these and you can find regular one. So let's just ignore this for now. Just here I can download the font. And a few websites I would recommend for the font downloading is the Font Squirrel, 1001 fonts. I don't think I have a font here, but let's just check it out. Okay, you can let's just go to a different website, Font Squirrel. I use this quite often. Now you'll find the fonts that are free here. Let's just say I would want to download say this one, chunk 5, maybe Cantrell. These are the types of fonts here. I'll just close these ads for now. Say I'll go for recently added. Let's just use this one, download ODF. Just click here, or maybe just click here. That'll open up this font page. Okay. Download got from Font Spring. Just download this. And it's taking quite a time here. Let's try again. Here we can see the previews of the fonts, how it was made and all that, and my internet is gone again. So I'll just refresh this real quick. Not able to access the website. Let me just go back to Font Squirrel again. Here. So let's just choose this one for a while. Eurosign or Eurokine. I don't know how to pronounce it. Okay. You can download Eurokine from Font Spring. Just click here. We can see there are two variants. I think the Font Spring is not working right now. So Font Squirrel. Let's just say this Fira Sans. I'll just click on this. Okay. This does not have the offsite option. It will just directly download it right away. There, I have my font right there. And it is going to take quite a while, 2 minutes to download. Alright, it's about to be downloaded. Okay, so I have quite few of options here. Let's just choose regular for now. Fira Sans regular. I'll just install this font. And now this font has been installed in my system. If you want, you can install the whole family. Now I'll just go back to my InDesign here. I'll just type in Fira Sans, F-I-R-A. Right. So I already had the font, but I had installed as well. So I can Fira Sans regular. So there I have my Fira Sans fonts regular. Successfully downloaded in my system. Now it will be available in all the Adobe applications on the computer. Another useful feature in the font selector is when you're typing a name. Let's double click here. Okay, so when you're typing a name here, let's just say let's type bold here. So you're not restricted to type the beginning of the name. You can type something else like bold, and you can find very quickly all the fonts available that has bold feature included. Now, of course, I can type in more as well, like bold italic, and it will come up with the options that have bold italics as well. Now let's say I'm looking for condensed font. Let's just go condensed, and there I have my condensed font of, and so on and so forth. To make sure you have this feature working, you need to have the Creative Cloud version of InDesign, but also you have to make sure that this search option is set to search entire font name and not the search first word only. So that's a setting you can access from the drop down here. Now, of course, if you have a font selected, like say this, I have a computer. Let's just go ahead and give Arial regular. So whenever I select the font family that has multiple styling options, you will be able to change the style underneath here. So I have a regular, italic, bold, narrow, narrow, italic, narrow, bold, italic, and black. By default you get 4 of these, that is regular, italic, bold, and bold italic. And you can actually change these by using shortcuts. Again, these you will find here on the left side of the styles, so you can apply the assigned shortcut like Shift Control B for bold. Now let's go back here, Control Shift B for bold, and Control Shift I for italics, and so on. Now there's an underlying way, by the way, so I can toggle between these and use that option as well. Now there's one more thing we wanted to discuss, that is how to resolve missing fonts. Sometimes you might end up opening a document where there are fonts originally used that you don't have on the computer. So what happens to them? So I have prepared a document intentionally for this and also made sure that I don't have that font available, so I should look for the same font for you as well. Let's go to file, open that particular file. Let's just go back here, missing fonts. Missing font. So I have an option here. I do not have this particular font in my system, and it is because it is missing because I don't have that in my system at all. Now it automatically suggests that it can be replaced, or you can skip this as well. But if I want to replace it with another font, I can just simply choose replace fonts. I can see what exactly the problematic font. I can just say alright and replace it. Select here, change all, and you can see that now I don't have missing font issues in my document. So I'll just go ahead and click done. So if I undo this step, then it will go back to missing font issue, and whenever you see this red outline, that means there's some issues with the font. So it's either missing or not available, and you have to make sure you fix before finalizing your project. Now we have just scratched the surface about applying fonts, and we'll learn a lot more now about the fonts. Moving on, one of the very common things you need to do in InDesign is to change the size of the selected text. I'll just close this document and go back to our masterclass workbook. Okay, so let's just say I have this paragraph quickly selected. I want to increase the size of this paragraph. Now by going to an options bar, I have this 100 character text option here. I can start increasing the size like this, or I can hold down the shift key. I can increase the size with the increment of 10, and so like that I can increase or decrease the size even faster. Of course, I can also choose down from the drop down menu here like this, or even just type in the value here for the value I need. There is also a shortcut that you can use, that is Command Shift full stop, or Command Shift or Control Shift full stop to increase the size, and to decrease you can hold Control Shift comma or Command Shift comma to decrease. It is easy to remember these shortcuts just by looking at the keyboard. You can see that you actually have the signs on these keys. So That's actually Control Shift to increase and decrease the size of the selected text. That is greater arrow key and smaller arrow key. Also, using the same shortcut, you can use Control Shift K, and from going to small case, you can give capital case as well. And if I hold on Control Shift K again, it'll go back to regular case. So the same shortcut can be used to toggle between the different casing setup, and you can actually find this under the type menu as well. You have the change case option here, uppercase, lowercase, title case, or sentence case. You also have the options available here in the options bar to be set to the selected text, that is the uppercase here, or all capitals. You can have an option called small caps also, where you will be able to see the sentence cases being in full size, and then the rest of the text is going to be set to capital letters, but with the X height. So they have the height of a regular lowercase character. Another useful thing you can quickly set is using a shortcut feature called tracking. Now all you need to do is hold down the Alt key and press right arrow key. I'm holding Alt and right arrow key. As you can see, it is increasing the spacing horizontally between the characters, or by using the left arrow key I can reduce the spacing and I can get them more closer to each other. And tracking is counted here in options bar with this value. It is currently minus value. That means spacing is less than the default, which is 0. And if you go to the positive area, that is here, the spacing will increase. The same exact feature by which default is called tracking can also be called the kerning if you apply this individually between two characters. Let's just go here in between two characters, that is E and D. Now let's say they are a little bit too close to each other. I can use the same shortcut, that is hold Alt and give arrow key, then it will increase the spacing, and by left arrow key I will be able to decrease the spacing between these two characters. And you can notice that is going to be changed here in this value as I'm increasing the spacing here. Now, so using this shortcuts individually between characters that we refer to as kerning, but essentially is the same thing, that is changing the spacing between these characters. Kerning is mainly important when you work with big titles and headings, especially for all capital letters. You wouldn't spend time doing it on the body copy because most fonts are designed in a way that the spacing should be already good, no matter what combination of letters you put after each other. Now let me select the text and go back to the way it was originally. So I'll just remove all this changes down here. Give undo. So it's 8 point. Let's go back to the 8 point. Okay. And the spacings as well, just select them, give them 0, and this one 0 as well. So that was the default we had earlier. Another useful thing you can remember is that you can find special characters for each font that you're working on from the type menu and lips. You use shortcut Alt Shift F11, and I can find the categories of special characters for the entire font. I can select here and go for the current font as well. So I can find the categories here. I can find the alternatives for a selection, or we can look for the entire font here. Alternatives for selection. Let's just say I select this. I have not selected anything. Okay. So for this, it has no selection. If I give enter font, it will give me the whole bunch of options for all the characters for this font. So we can see a little bit more of these. You can show them bigger or smaller and switch between the different styling as well. So we can switch to bold and go to regular if you wanted to. So if I'm looking for maybe a fraction here, let's go down here and let's just say math symbols. Entire font. Okay, so I have fraction option here. Just one click, and example of this is 1/4. I have 1/2 and 3/4 as well. So if I click on this, I'll get the special character right in my body copy. And it's going to look something like this in the text. It is not the same thing as writing 1/4. 1/4, that are 3 characters. Now instead of 3 characters, this is just one single glyph, which we normally can call real fraction. Now usually OpenType font would give you a lot of alternate glyphs for even normal standard characters. Now let's say I'll just go back here and type Y. Let's go back here, type Y, capital Y. And there's a font called Lust Script. I'll just select this and go quickly here, Lust Script. Yeah. So if I go here, it will give me these 2 options of doing a Y. There are 2 alternatives here. It will immediately pop up like this and giving me the alternative versions of the characters, so I can choose that one with a little bit more decoration, and I can choose one here that is a simple one. So certain fonts will have alternative options, and InDesign is going to give you a quick access to them, so you don't even have to go through the glyphs option. And once again, this is a quick access available only in the Creative Cloud. In previous versions, you just use type and then go to glyph and select the version you need. And one more thing, that in case you have a name in your text, you want to make sure that they stay together. Let's just say I'll type in here Adobe InDesign. Adobe InDesign. With a capital D. Okay. So I want them to make sure Adobe InDesign to make sure that this never gets divided, and between 2 lines, instead of having a simple space, I will use a thing that is called non-breaking space. You can access this from the type menu again, and under insert white space, here you have an option called non-breaking space. You have shortcut as well, Control Alt X. Here I have added the space there. Now if I reduce the width of the text frame, as I say here, if I reduce the width of the text frame, it still stays together. If I go a little bit, it goes down, but it does not break. Let's say I just increase the font size as well. Just increase the font size, but they stay together at all conditions, like they're married to each other. You'll see it will never be divided, so it moves together. The 2 words will never split between any lines. It's a very important feature because you will need this a lot formatting your copy, and that's a great way of avoiding separation of important names and to be able to tell where you use these special non-breaking spaces. This is a very useful feature under the type menu called Show Hidden Characters. Again, there is a shortcut called Control Alt I or Control Shift I. Control Alt I, and wait a minute. Let's have show hidden characters. Double click here. Control A, go back here, hide hidden characters. Type show hidden characters. I'll just select this font here and go and hide hidden characters and type show hidden characters. Maybe I'm just in previous. Okay, in the preview you will be able to see that here, Adobe InDesign here. These are the hidden characters that you don't really see unless you have that options activated. You can see at the end of the paragraph the signs and then the story as well. Sometimes while I'm editing the text, I prefer to see these characters, but knowing the shortcuts is useful and you can easily toggle between them. So hide them or show them. If you want to access them, make sure you are in the normal view and not in the preview. So toggling between them is W. You make sure you can see the margins and the outlines of your frames, meaning that if you are in the normal view, because the hidden characters will not show up in the preview. Now, that's a lot of things about editing text on a character level. Now we'll discuss about basic paragraph formatting features. Now that we have learned how to show hidden characters, we already discussed that, and here looking at this, pressing W, we already see that at the end of paragraph signs, these are line breaks recited automatically whenever the user press enter key on the keyboard. It will give a line breaks. Now a lot of users will end up having empty line breaks. I'll just remove this Y I used before. Right. So to have space between them is something that I would recommend to avoid. Let me show you how you can work around that. In InDesign, there is a much better way of giving space between paragraphs, and you want to divide them like this. So what will I do? I'll give a backspace here. I'll just give backspace, and here as well backspace, or delete to remove that empty paragraph in there. And between the first and second paragraph, the third and fourth paragraph, I'll do the same as well. So at the moment they are still divided and they are still separate paragraph. I can tell by the signs here, signs at end of the paragraph, but visually they are a little bit too close to each other. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select all these, hold Control A, and these three paragraphs are selected, and from the paragraph formatting controls I have this option. I'm going to assign space after these paragraphs, so that feature here can be increased and can be decided how much space I want to see. So let's say I want a 3 millimeter of space here, for example. Now what that means that we don't have any empty paragraphs between these. It is just simply a formatting feature that allows to have a bit more space between them, and you can also have space before paragraphs, and in some cases that might be better to use, or maybe you can use even both of them, but you just have to keep in mind that they might add up, and if you use both before and after, then now if I add a paragraph setting space after formatting, if I split one of these paragraphs by selecting or somewhere in middle and pressing enter, automatically will inherit a formatting. Let's just see here, Press enter, it will inherit the formatting of 3 space like so, a 3mm space here. So if I want to break the line without creating a new paragraph, of course this is also possible. So let me just undo this one last step. Now instead of pressing enter, I'm going to use shift enter, and that is creating a forced line break. Notice how it is different unique hidden character sign as well. So just to show you where you can find this, I'm going to undo this last step, and you can go it from the type tool and insert break character. You can give here paragraph break, forced line break here, shift enter shortcut. And that's the shortcut that we can use. So adding that will split my paragraph, and I could even add another one here if I really wanted to separate, but this is still handled as one paragraph. This whole thing is still one paragraph. Shift enter gives me one more as well, but still this will be as one paragraph. That's what I mean. This can be also very useful in many different ways, and mainly use this if we want to keep this text to be handled as one single paragraph, even though visually it looks like they are separate. A paragraph is a very important unit in the text editing in InDesign, so there's many reasons why you want to keep the text within the same paragraph, but for now it's enough to remember the shortcut and you know how to identify these hidden characters. And there's a couple of easier to understand text formatting options while you are dealing with paragraphs, like alignment, and for that there are shortcuts and of course options here in the paragraph formatting controls as well. So by default we have the text aligned to the left. We can set it aligned to the center and aligned to the right, and other different justifications as well. Currently it is center justify all lines, that is a forced justify option. And I can also access these using the shortcut, that is Control Shift L for left aligned, Control Shift L, that is left aligned, Control Shift R will be right aligned, Control Shift C is center aligned, and Control Shift J is justify. Now when you're using justified text, one thing you should keep in mind is that it is not going to look good if your column or text frame is too narrow. Now let's just see what I mean by that. If it's too narrow, it's not going to look good. Now it immediately starts to break up the text. It is happening because mainly I don't have hyphenation on either. Let's just select this. Here I need to have hyphenation on. Without hyphenation and forced justification on the narrow columns or text frame, you will end up having this problem, which is called reverse in typography, meaning these gaps here flow through the whole frame or paragraph, and that's something you definitely want to avoid. So one fix is for that, you need to use the justified text and set the paragraph text to hyphenate, check mark here, hyphenate, and that is going to solve the problem by dividing some of the longer words, but it still doesn't look great. So you should probably consider switching to left align option, which you can see in the second paragraph looks quite healthier. And there is another very useful feature called leading, with which you can increase the spacing between your lines. So if you select this paragraph, let's just go ahead and select this paragraph, and I can use shortcut Alt and up and down arrow keys will increase the leading. Down will increase the leading and up arrow key will decrease the leading. But if I go to the character panel and if I press up and down, you can observe here the changes happening in the lettering section. If you want to set it back to the value, I would need to choose auto. Just go back here and choose auto. Now that's interesting to know that the size of the lettering, the auto leading, is 20% more than what your font size is. So that's the easiest way to see that when I set my font size to 10 and it will show spacing that is 12 points, that is 20% more. So additional 2 points is used to calculate that mainly allow for both the uppercase characters and the descender details like P, like these P here, G, Q, and other options as well. So the whole point in using lettering is to add more space and between your lines, or reduce them if you need to squeeze in more text in the same page. And just as a reminder, if you use the same shortcut with the left and right arrow keys, it was tracking. So left and right key held will be giving this option right here. And by default it should be set 0. Okay, you're changing the vertical spacing, which is called lettering, and so lettering and tracking are very similar. That's why we have a similar shortcut for them as well. Now for the paragraph formatting, we also have indents. So I can push the whole paragraph from the left using this option here. It's called left indent, and I can also use the right indent as well. Now if you have this normal view on, we can see it's probably a bit better that the original end of the column or end of the frame was, compared to what we have now is 3 mm, 8 mm by 3 mm, sorry 6 mm by 8 mm gap. 6 mm is left indent and 8 mm is right indent. So I set to 6 for both as well. So that way I have a little bit more different visual representation. There is a new paragraph starting here. One thing in typography you should pay attention to is to not to overemphasize details, like division between paragraphs can be explained by having space between them, or different size font, or first line indent. For example, if you start adding too many features, it might be a little bit of an overkill. So having say space between them is also first line indent. It can be a little too much. So use one or the other, but not the both of them at the same time. Also, it is useful to learn all of these formatting features, and you should use them sparingly, and you should really think about how you can help your viewer to go through copy and have pleasing reading experience. Now, these are some basic formatting paragraph features we have in the InDesign. Now let's take a look at more. As a designer, your task is to make sure that the text is easy to read, and the way you navigate your viewers through the copy is by adding entry points. Now these are visually distinguished points where the reader can immediately start reading the copy, and a great example of an entry point would be a drop cap. Now this is a feature that InDesign is really strong on, and you can customize drop caps very quickly and easily. All you have to do is double click within the paragraph and make sure you have the formatting paragraph controls available and visible, and there under here option we have the drop cap. You'll find the number of drop cap lines, and here is the size of the drop cap. All you have to do is increase the size at least to 2 or any further than that, and you will immediately see that the first character will grow in size. The number you set here is exactly how many lines the height of this character will be covering, and I'm going to set this back to maybe number 3. And then there is another option here, that is drop cap one or more characters, which means you can actually include more than the first letter from the paragraph to become a drop cap. Normally this is set to 1, but some cases you might want to include more than 1. Now in case I include maybe the whole word, let's just say this 6-letter word, and maybe if this is a Y here, a descender, then we will end up having something issue that is called drop cap word overlapping the line underneath. Whenever this happens, you will need to access the additional options for your drop cap, and you can do that by alt clicking on the drop cap icon on the options bar, and here you'll have these options. And there's a feature called scale for descenders. I'll just click on preview so it is visible here. So it will still fit with the 3 lines, but it now allows space for descender characters. That is a very smart feature. You will only be able to find this if you get into extra options. And once again, to get this to you, you just have to hold alt key and click on the icon for the drop cap feature. Another useful option that was introduced in the Creative Cloud version of InDesign is paragraph shading. I'm going to show you this on the title paragraph here. I'll just double click on the frame. Let's double click on the frame here, and I have my cursor in the title, and then I go from the paragraph formatting controls. I'm going to choose shading, and that is on right now. So I just simply select that, and underneath that I can choose what color here. I can change the color I wish to work with, and maybe so if I go to black, and I can change the color of the font to be white. Alright. Also, I'll just go back to the paragraph here, and I also have a gradient option here as well. Now once again, similar to drop caps, if you want to access additional options, then I would have to alt click on this icon here, and I will have these options available for editing this here. Now one of these things you might find useful here is to decide the width of the spacing. Here, the width of the spacing. Just click on here, shading, maybe shading. Corner side, maybe width of the spacing, and clip to frame, overprint, green watch, shading on or off. I can just switch on the preview. Okay, so now I can see what's going on in real time. Now I can change the width of the text, that is the actual column, or just the text itself. So when I choose the text, you will see that the shading stops exactly at the end of the title's text. But if I maybe set this to a different color, like yellow, let me just choose a red one. Okay. So now if I set it back to column, I would previously go all the way to the edge of the current column. Let's say column, all the way to the edge of the current column. which in this case the whole text frame or the whole width of the text frame, because it's just a single column frame. So let me just keep it on text, and if I go OK, now you'll see one more thing here. If I go here and press enter, similarly to the line spacing here, again the new paragraph will inherit the previous attribute, and we can have a division between the shading as well. But if I want no space between these two lines, I want the shading to continue, I would have to use shift enter, that is forced line break. Shift enter, that is forced line break. Another thing you can use, also you can go back to shading settings, and as offsets you can use this to increase this top left. It is currently linked, so it will increase from all the sides. So I can customize and increase it from one particular way as well. Just relink this and increase that. It will increase from the top only. It's better to keep it linked for now. Now if I say here, it will be baseline, descent here, baseline, leading, ascent, and there is one more option in the paragraph formatting option, that is span and split columns. Now I'll just go to this page number. Okay, so here you see this heading is squashed into the first column within this text frame. So instead of having this set into a separate text stream, you can select this paragraph, and from the paragraph formatting settings, from here I have span 3 that will go on until all the 3 paragraphs, which would be if I choose span all, it will go throughout. If I choose span 2, it will stay for 2 paragraphs, which in this case looks better. And then similarly to this, if you feel like a part of your copy is like here, the bullet list here is a bit too narrow and you have simply massive gap to next to it, you can simply use other feature that is called split 2, 3 or 4. In this case probably split 2 is enough. I'll just select all of these, go here and split 2, and then it sets them up as 2 columns within our middle column. So these are now split into 2 columns within an already column layout. So both span and split options you can find from the paragraph formatting options, and don't forget that will always apply themselves to the whole paragraph. So for these to work, you have to make sure that you divide your copy into paragraphs. This is all you need to know about the paragraphs and paragraphs formatting.